Spending a single dollar in Tier 1 states like Hawaii and California versus Tier 5 states like Mississippi and Oklahoma feels like operating in two completely different economies. The purchasing power of that dollar stretches or compresses, depending on the coordinates of your zip code. This spectrum organizes the five-tier landscape of U.S. states. The baseline is anchored at an index score of 100. Ultra-premium states demand a 40% premium, pushing the index past 125. In the ultra-affordable tier, under 90, your dollar stretches 14% further. Prices for a gallon of milk or a pair of teens fluctuate by region. These everyday consumer goods account for a small portion of the cost difference between these tiers. To find the source of the gap, we have to look at four structural forces that define the cost of living long before you reach the checkout counter. The largest component of the cost of living calculation is shelter. It is the primary factor driving the divide across the country. High-cost coastal states like New York, California, and Massachusetts operate on an inelastic housing supply. This means that even as population and demand rise, the ability to build new homes is restricted. Strict local zoning laws and physical barriers create a hard wall against new development, pushing housing index scores above 200. Contrast this with the Midwest and South. Permissive zoning allows residential developments to expand as demand increases, keeping housing scores in the 60s and 70s. A state's physical geography and its specific zoning rules effectively predetermine the baseline cost of shelter for its residents. Beyond housing, the physical effort required to move goods onto store shelves inside these states creates a second cost division. In Hawaii, the state relies on heavily regulated ocean freight. Transporting a shipment of food across the Pacific pushes Hawaii's grocery index past 150. In Alaska, severe seasonal weather and vast trucking distances over rugged terrains make moving supplies difficult, raising the baseline costs for utilities and healthcare. The logistical complexity required to transport goods forces consumers in isolated regions to absorb higher prices on essential items. The third factor is the cost of powering the households and infrastructure within these states. Densely populated states with strict environmental mandates often rely on complex grid management and higher-cost power sources, which increases utility bills for the consumer. In contrast, states that use deregulated local power grids and possess abundant traditional energy resources benefit from lower transmission costs and an ample local supply. A region's regulatory environment and its proximity to energy resources establish the base cost of living before the consumer even turns on a light. Local tax frameworks act as the final multiplier on the cost of living in any given state. This bar chart breaks down the highest cost tiers. These states use a combination of state income taxes, localized sales taxes, and property tax assessments, creating a high compounded financial burden. This burden has triggered a domestic migration shift as remote workers and relocating businesses move away from the high premium tiers. The primary targets of this shift are in the Sun Belt. Data shows domestic migration heading toward lower tax states like Texas, Florida, and the Carolinas. A state's structural tax design acts as a catalyst, redistributing the American workforce toward more affordable tiers. While this inbound migration is driving up local home prices in the Sun Belt, their overall composite index scores remain well below the coastal premiums. The cost of living chasm in America is a result of how local governments choose to manage their land, source their energy, and structure their taxes. To understand your own paycheck, you need to look at how these regional frameworks operate and where your money is actually going.